everybody needs to know that that's like why we have these conversations. We're both coming from an investment standpoint, but really I would have these conversations with you anyway as a mentor in the agent game. I still remember the first one that we had when you just called me out of the blue and introduced yourself. When I hung up, I was like, that lady is impressive. One day I want to sound like her. And I'm just so grateful now we're friends so that I can show up here, ask you questions, and everybody gets to benefit.
Oh, and likewise, I'm a life learner. So, yes, for those of you who haven't watched too many episodes, I've been a licensed agent now for 18 years, and I've been more involved in real estate to some capacity for a majority of my life. So, my dad was in the 80s, a McMansion, as we used to call them, big, huge houses that would build in the 80s, and he made custom homes from the ground up. So I worked with him in the summers on the sites, from dirt to the inception, inception to execution, basically. And I think I was just free labor, but that's where I learned a lot. And then I got onto the sales side of it. So I don't do any development or building myself at the moment, but I got into it. So I have a lot of experience, and that's what makes this fun, because you and I get the opportunity to bring what we know to the table and allow not only other interested investors, whether they're wholesalers, whether they're flippers who are going to be tuning in. But also, our intention is to bridge the gap of that conversation between agents and investors.
Mm.
It's a little bit of oil and water. We tolerate each other, and I'm probably pretty unusual because very, very early on in my career, when the market shifted in 2007, I was almost forced to work with investors because I did a lot of what's called REO, or real estate owned. That's the acronym, REO. And those are homes, unfortunately, that went back to the bank. People just could not continue to make payments on them. And the bank basically repossessed the property. So that's the short version of what an REO is. And then I had REO accounts, which means that the bank is not in the business of being landlords. So they want those homes off their books. So they brought me on, and many other people did REOs then, but I'll say myself as the example. They brought me on, and I had these folks as REO accounts. So I would get these random emails that would say, hey, go to 123 Main Street and we need you to, list the property and sell the property. And there was a lot that went on with that. So I got involved in working with a lot of investors because of that. And then my personality is such that I really enjoyed, working with investors. So many of them are very bottom line. They're data driven. It's emotional in a different way, but it's not as taxing, for my personality. They're just like, does it work? Does it not work? It doesn't get dragged on for months on end. And so I just rode that wave, and whatever that is now, like 17 years later or 16 years later, that's been the majority of my business. So we all know that wholesaling right now is a hot topic.
Mhm.
And that's how you and I met, through community. And so here I am, to bridge that gap, right? The agent investor, I guess you could call myself. So that's the short of it for those of you who hadn't hadn't known exactly who you're talking to. So lots of years later, lots of stories later, lots of drama and trauma. I'd like to consider myself a part-time psychologist, that's for sure, in this crazy business. But yeah, let's get at it.
Yeah. So I'm curious, like, we didn't plan today at all as to what we're talking about. So to some extent, I want to tell you what's going on in my business and get your feedback, and then
Yes.
hear what's going on in yours. Because I'm definitely more of the
Okay.
investor-centric agent, but I think a lot of newbies here need to hear how this functions and how this works, because it's one of the quickest ways to have consistency for yourself within a business is to have multiple different kinds of buyers. And so working with investment buyers like myself is something that I highly encourage. And so yeah, I just kind of want to go down this rabbit hole because I was supposed to have a closing
Let's
yesterday
do it.
and it hasn't happened.
Supposed to.
Right.
We don't like the supposed tos. This is why, guys, one of my biggest adages in all of these years, and we can't help it, we're human beings. Small checks come in, big checks come in. It hurts more when the big checks are supposed tos. And I always, always ground myself in, we do not get paid until we walk out of the building with the check in our hand. And that is the truth. I've had a couple of deals at the 11th hour where people decided they wanted to get divorced right at the end of it. And just because they've already signed off on their contingencies and they're at risk, if you will, for mediation or arbitration and all of those things, according to the purchase agreement, it hasn't closed. And so people will pay dollars, because they get caught up in their own lawsuits. And I've had that where somebody decided, I'm thinking to myself, how could you not know that you potentially were not going to get divorced like 4 years, I mean, not 4 years, what am I saying? Like 45 days prior.
Yeah.
And then you're in an escrow and they decide they're going to get divorced. And you're like, oh my God, how did this even happen? And meanwhile, I didn't get paid. So it just went into a lawsuit. Anyway, you do not get paid until you walk out of the building with your check in your hand. So remember that. So what happened?
Okay, so the buyer comes to us 11th hour of yesterday and says, I'm going to need more time to close. Okay, we've heard this one before. We've had to do this before, but we really wanted to know why. Like, what happened? What changed here? And they're saying that their lender wasn't ready to fund. Another thing that I experience pretty often. But I call the lender because I want to know a little bit more about what we're talking about in terms of close date. Because I have to go back to my seller and change that close date. I want to let them know what's going on. And the lender was like, "Oh, I don't have the appraisal back yet," which we're on
What?
closing day and they're waiting on an
Yeah.
appraisal, which could change everything in the game in the first place. So I was like, wait, we're waiting on an appraisal. And she's like, yeah, it should be easy. We're getting the insurance in place. And I think I just need until next Monday. And I was like, well, can we get this done on Friday, with a bunch of red flags like already flaring, of course. But everybody just went dark on me for the rest of the evening. So I went ahead and extended to
Mm.
Friday. Told my seller what was up, assured him that I was, looking towards a close here. Nothing was up yet. Now, my buyer comes back to me today and says, now that lender's not going to lend. They don't like our price. I would have to bring double to the table, meaning now he's probably got to bring repair values to the table as well, and he wasn't expecting that, all sorts of issues. And I'm like, at this point, we're losing EMD. Like, kiss it goodbye or figure out how to close is kind of the conversation I'm having nicely with him.
Mm-hmm.
And realizing that this lender is more of a traditional lender. They pulled an appraisal.
Mm-hmm.
That's like number one. Now,
Mm-hmm.
I am talking to this buyer who's relatively new. And today I've spent most of my day going out there and connecting him to hard money lenders to see if he can
Mm-hmm.
potentially get this closed on Friday, because I do have multiple hard money lenders that move that fast. That's what they're around for. And so he's put in
Mm-hmm.
applications and we're waiting to see approval. And while all this is going on, the day after we're supposed to close, he's negotiating with me to try to drop the price.
Woo, that's a heavy duty bait and switch right there. Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
So that's it. So that's where you're at right
That
now?
is where I am at as of standing today. I've got some great hard money lenders working on it, but my buyer shocked me in terms of this kind of bait and switch. And I've never closed with this. It's actually through another dispo, but I
Mm.
jumped, straight to connecting to him and straight to connecting to his lender at a certain point to make sure that communication was happening across the board. But at this point, I can feel the attachment to making my seller happy because my seller is also an agent.
Oh, wow.
So
Did
I'm
they know you were potentially wholesaling it?
Yeah, they understood exactly the process. I'm pretty clear about that. I don't
Okay.
use the W word very often in terms of wholesale, but he understood we were assigning it to somebody else and that we were a part of that
Okay.
transaction through the whole thing. Get this, I called him yesterday to extend and he's like, "Well, okay, he was so gracious. He's like, I feel good about, closing on Friday or anytime like that, as long as we close. But if we don't close, I'm going to be real frustrated by this process." Because come
Yeah.
to find out, the buyer has entered a couple times without my knowledge recently. So
Interesting.
I know, I'm just like, oh, this one was fun. I'm seeing a lot of opportunity. I feel like I'm playing well within the game, but I am seeing the
Mhm.
potential of having to cancel on somebody I've now made a relationship with and built up in my ability to get things done. And I might have to let them down.
Boy, there's a lot to unpack here. So, a good story. And it sounds like it's going to move forward. It sounds like it's going to actually close. And I'm pointing out, from what I'm hearing you say, that guys, relation business, not just real estate, but I'll say it as real estate. Real estate is a relationship based business. So even in your downtime, or if you're a newbie and you're not sure what to do, you want to also be creating relationships with what I refer to as vendors. And so a hard money lender would be a vendor, just like in a general inspector, mold guy or whatever. They're all kind of vendors, right? So that if I say that again, you'll know what that means. And having these relationships and having them at your fingertips is key. So fostering them, getting them going and fostering them in any kind of downtime is just as imperative. So that's where you, Corianne, are able to be a resource, because not only are we part-time psychologists as agents, but we're also a resource. This is where people are coming to us to help solve problems. At the end of the day, we're solutionists, if that's a word. That's what we do. We solve problems. And so you can see where experience, it matters, even though maybe somebody might say, oh, she's only 3 or 5 years in the business. You've done enough of the foundational work to where you can get ahead of something and say, gosh, should anything like this ever happen, I'll have these people at my fingertips. And guess what, you'll also have them as a referral resource, because we're back to, it's a relationship based business. So if I was having a problem and I said, oh my gosh, Corianne, who do you know that's a good hard money lender, you would have that resource for me, right? Even though there might be not anything in it for you, because we're friends and that's what people do, they just, we help each other out, and we'll get you in the back end kind of thing. But that's what we do a lot as agents, trusted agents, as I might call somebody. Hey, do you have somebody for this? Do you have a vendor for that? So that is just brilliant right there in getting this thing over the line. And then future pacing is also what I heard. So people are going to have their expectations in life. That's what we all do. We have our own rose-colored glasses. We see life through the glasses and the lenses that we want to see through it. And so this other agent that you're working with, that you're creating a relationship with, that basically declared, I want this closed, because nobody wants a canceled contract. Nobody, whether it's retail, whether it's investment opportunity, no bueno on the canceled contracts, even though they happen. And so you're out there on the raw and ragged, creating relationships with people, and now potentially you're going to have a letdown.
Mm-hmm.
So, these are the things that we're combating on a day-to-day basis. And I'm going to say something that's probably going to be really unpopular. I say, if you're going to be in the game of real estate, to really understand yourself and to constantly be in a space of self-development, and how thus you can serve other people. It's like that spiritual principle of fill your cup first and then you can fill other people's cups. It's like that, it's not that there's a sieve in the cup, but it is a constant filling of, because there's a never ending road to knowing thyself. And so the more you know yourself, and the more you have emotional intelligence and psychology and all the things, that you can then get ahead of something, because you can anticipate how somebody might react in that situation and then combat it. And that is how you will actually save relationships. Because no matter what, even though that guy's like, hey, I don't want it to cancel, because nobody wants a canceled contract, that you'll know enough about how you're going to handle that situation, such that if it does have to cancel, you won't actually lose the relationship. Mm-hmm. Somebody's feelings might be hurt for 24 hours, but you're not going to lose the relationship, because it's the nature of the business. Mm-hmm. And that's really imperative, what I just said, because you could just as easily be out here canceling contracts all over the place. And that's what investors, and as better known as the W word, right, wholesalers, are doing. And it's upsetting agents. Mm-hmm. Because it is occurring like nobody cares, and it's very transactional. You're not here to save the relationship. You're there to just make money and be transactional. Oops, sorry, I had to cancel a contract, and on down the road you go. And we have collateral damage for that, because we have other people that are in our relationships that we are making, that are longevity. They're long-term relationships. They're not transactional. So remember that when you're out here as a newbie investor, and those of you who are listening to this that are agents are probably shaking your head, that you can also help train those investors. Hey, this is how I like to work. I don't want this to be a one-hit wonder. I am into this business because of the longevity and the relationships. Where are you? Is that how you like to do business? Let's talk about it before you get into a relationship, because it's a two-way street. Mm-hmm. You don't have to throw the investor under the bus. So Corianne, good on you. That it actually sounds like it's going to work. And I'm not just saying that to be positive, but it's definitely going to be, clutching on the edges, right? Like, oh, I don't know. And just, go with the glass half full. Go with that. How will this look when it actually completes? So have the expectation, get in front of it verbally. And then from an affirmative standpoint, from an energetic and affirmative standpoint, when this closes, right? Because if you're
Mm,
just looking at it like, well, what happens if it doesn't close?
mm,
That's the message you're sending out there.
totally.
So have your feet on the ground, with the conversations. Don't be out in the ethers, but have your feet on the ground with the conversations. And then from your mental standpoint, come at it like when it closes, because it has to close at some point. Yes, albeit whether it's you or someone else, but it has to close at some point. So
Hmm.
why not you? And stand firm in that.
Well, as somebody who teaches wholesalers how to approach this business,
Mhm.
because it took me a long time in my own investments to get to a place where I was following through on my commitments, is a good way to put it, because the people that I learned from don't have the ethics that I now hold within the community I do as to how wholesalers approach. So I'm just grateful for that, but having all of that kind of behind me, I'm sitting in a place right now where I'm like, there is no room to negotiate. I've negotiated as all get out with this seller. I'm already barely making a bite out of this. This isn't a huge wholesale check for me. Honestly, if he walked away, I would make close to what I would make if he closes. So I'm sitting here
Mm.
pushing for it to close because the relationship is so important to me, because my name and what I say is so important to me. So I'm fighting from all aspects, even bringing my hard money lenders in, because I do want to see this closed, even though it doesn't do me much benefit. And so, yeah, I'm in that exact place where I'm between needing to detach and needing to just be like, I have given a lot of energy this morning over to this. I have to let some other people work. I have to let the universe work with me towards this closing that's happening on Friday. you know?
Amen. There you
So,
go.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That's beautiful. Yeah, there's a lot of check yourself, not just you, the figurative you, right?
Mhm,
There's a lot of that. And if there was something else I could impart that is challenging, is that you want to make sure that you're in a space of being unattached, but making sure that you're committed.
mhm,
And that's a distinction. So you're committed, to the relationship, salvaging, and I'll use the word, and maybe it's not quite there yet, but salvaging a relationship, and committed to a transaction that's closing, regardless of what you're going to make on it. And we often take ones for the team. You don't have to discount yourself. I don't believe in discounting yourself. I also think there's a lot of agents that just very easily start chipping away at a commission or chipping away at the finances, when in reality they are worth every dollar, whether that is in a traditional sale or in what we be considered a wholesale. You don't have to do that. You don't have to kind of placate and people please the situation. You can stand firm on your dollars, but remember that it's the relationship that matters. So here, you don't even necessarily have that. You're not even necessarily pulled by the money, and yet it's the relationship. So stay committed and unattached.
yeah,
So hopefully that's something that you guys will really play with, because it's kind of a push pull, within yourself. It's a push pull of how you're emotionally riding the ride of any transaction, and especially one that it's contested,
mhm,
because it will matter. It's your health. Your health is at stake. So if you go to bed and you hit the pillow and you're just tossing and turning all night because this deal might fall, or a deal might fall apart, then I'm being imperative. You have to. It's not even really a get to. You have to check yourself. So whatever it is that you're going to do in the day, and this includes you, Corianne, because you live in a beautiful place, so you can walk out your front door and basically go for a walk, and leave it on the field, as they say, right? Or like leave it kind of outside. And I do that. I actually go for a walk every single day, because it's not necessarily exercise. It's from my sanity. So you've got to like transition and leave things, behind when you're trying to transition your day, like into an evening or into a morning. And again, stay committed and be unattached.
mm,
That's the best you can do.
mm.
Yeah.
I
You're on the
appreciate
right
that.
path. It's going to go.
It will.
Yeah.
It will close. But I'm actually really grateful for this morning. One, because I am working on my own consistency of those on and off points as to like, when am I really starting working? Is it 6 a.m. when I roll over and I look at my phone and I check my messages and I message people back, or is it at 9 when I sit down in the office? And so those are things I've been just working on. And I happened to hit every mark in my morning routine this morning, got my exercise in, all of that. So I was super zen by the time I received this information. And then because of all of that being done, I've been in flow state of how do I solve? How do I solve? And in a place where I can see the opportunity, I can see the gratitude that I can have in it because those vendors I haven't talked to in a while. But man, do they love hearing
Mm.
from me when I'm like, nope, not doing anything with you right now, but I am giving you a referral that literally could close this week. You want to make money this week? They're like, yeah, I do. So I'm excited to be reminded about those vendor relationships and how utilizing them only helps my whole network. So kind of recognizing how I need to put those things in place more often in my day to day.
Oh, that's so good, Corianne. And I just want to comment on that. So you guys can hear the goodness in that, right? You can hear Corianne's commitment, and you can just hear the goodness. Like, I want to, committed to, making those relationships. And I want to just remind you of something. So whomever out here, unless they're a very good friend, and we want to be on the way to having our vendors be very good friends, and that just comes over time and experience, right? So it's nice that people are going to be nice to each other in a working relationship, and the truth is they want to make money together. So, and it's just like creating like an intimate relationship, right? You there's a dance, there's a ramp up, and there's a dance. And the thing is that no one's really pining away for any of us. So, Corey, and the fact that you picked up the phone and you said, and in your mind, you're like, oh, geez, I haven't talked to these people in a while. Well, the reality is no one's pining away for us. They're just waiting for us, if you will, to do business. They're waiting for that cue. They like us. They think we're cool. People like to do business with with people they know, like, and trust. And at the same time, they're waiting on a cue to get paid and make that whole thing, keep moving. Right. So, guys, remember that even if you haven't talked to a client in a long time, or you haven't talked to a vendor in a long time, they're not waiting for you to call. So when you call, don't get it in your head that it's weird, and don't be weird. Just call out the elephant in the room. Hey, I dropped the ball. You should have been hearing from me 3 months ago. Throw yourself under the bus in a very loving way, and people will just kind of agree with it. Because what gets weird is when you don't call out elephants in the room, and then people have these notions of, oh, well, this chick didn't call me for a while, now she wants something from me. So get ahead of it, right? Set those expectations as we talked about, and just know that people are waiting for your call to do business, but they're not pining away for your friendship necessarily, unless you've earned that. So pick up those phones and call. And I want to share something really quick, because I've been doing my agent outreach, and I've heard this a couple of times this week. And this is not to impress you, right? But to impress upon you and to remind you about follow-up. So just as much as there's been a gap, right, Corianne, that you hadn't called somebody, let me tell you what it sounds like when there isn't a gap. So I called another agent who didn't, quote unquote, have anything for me, right, to write on or look at, but literally verbatim said to me, I really appreciate that you have consistently kept up with me. You have sent me probably 6 text messages in the last 4 months. So that's pretty much like one every other week, which is a good enough touch cadence. And, most investors do not do that. So he considers me an agent investor. Most investors do not do that. And I appreciate that you've kept up with me. And that's why I'm calling. Here's what you want to hear. And that's why I'm calling you to give you this address, because you've been very consistent with me. Here's what consistency breeds: trust. Consistency breeds trust. And if you don't really believe me, and in terms of an opinion, let me give you a quick analogy. So for those of you who have kids or have babysat or just understand small children, small kids need a schedule. So I'll speak to kind of the parents out there, right? So at 6 o'clock, we're going to eat dinner. At 9 o'clock, we're going to have a bath. At 9:30, we're going to bed, whatever it is, right? I'm making up these times. And so you do that as a routine, not only as a parent to keep your sanity, but partially also to make sure that your child knows that there's a future to live into. There's expectations that we have. There's boundaries that we're creating. This is the rules of engagement. This is the house that we live in. All of those things breed consistency, and consistency breeds trust.
Mm-hmm.
So if that isn't incentive enough to make sure that you have a CRM or a customer relationship management system that is on point, I don't know what is. Because frankly, the fortune really is in the follow-up. It's delusional to think that you're out here going to make one phone call and get one deal. You earn that. You will do business that way, but you earn that. So for the newbies, that is delusional. And if you get one or two, good on you. But it's not
Hmm.
consistent rather, I should say. I've had that happen maybe like 2-3 times in 18 years in my career. So I want to hit that home because that is where your money is made. And the reason why people do business with people that they know, like, and trust is because they've created the consistency and they've earned that.
Yeah.
So if there's gaps in time and life happens and somebody fell through the CRM and all the things, again, no one's pining away for you, but realize that you don't have to keep getting back on the horse every time. If you're consistent, then that person will be like, oh, hey, Corianne, hi, Renee, because that's how he answered his phone, because I'm in his phone. And by the way, I left him, the same guy, I left this agent with a bit of information because he was complimenting me on being consistent. And then he threw himself under the bus and said, I'm not consistent. I have to be consistent. And I asked for permission, but I gave him some tough love. I said, can I offer you something? And I got my emphatic voice on and I said, Peter, you're not, you, I said, you said to me, you've got about 1,500 people in your database that actually know of you. They're not cold. Okay. They know of you. That's what he told me. I said, what are you doing? Go pay $1,000 for somebody to get, and he's using Follow Up Boss, which is a pretty kind of pricey, and most agents know what it is. Follow Up Boss is a CRM. I said, go pay somebody $1,000 to set you up and set it and forget it, because you have another $150,000 to $200,000 in that database right now that you are leaving money on the table. What are you doing? Let's do some business.
Hmm.
I'm over here. So I incentivized him to do that. I gave him a compliment, to say, or some incentive, I guess I should say, to do it. And, go dig in your pocket for 500 or $1,000. And if you don't have it, go find it. Because I'm telling you, your CRM, you should live and die by your CRM, whether you're an investor or whether you're an agent. Most agents know that. I don't know if investors know that. So,
And most brokers are going to provide you with that. If you're a part of any
yeah.
brokerage, learn the one they give you for free. Like I have my own CRM for my investment side of my business, but I still utilize my broker's CRM for friends, family, anybody, just to remind I'm in real estate, and that kind of keeps both balls juggling. But I love that you're bringing this up because I just like it's
Mhm.
ringing true to so much that's been happening in my day. And I think the CRM though is the pinnacle. I don't care whether you're on the investment side or whether you're on the agent side. Like, if you're going to have one thing, get a way to make other people feel special.
It's imperative.
Yeah.
I mean, as corny as it sounds, and my eye doctor sends me a happy birthday every year. It's like, who wants to hear from the eye doctor? But I remember it. My birthday's in December. And I would remember that in July. It's just one of those little touches. And, the CRMs are just so stinking automated right now. They're basically, a low paid assistant to a degree. So lean in. I mean, they just keep getting better and better, whether it's AI, whether it's not AI. I'm not a huge fan of AI. What I'm a fan of is the messaging going out. You got to be careful with the AI. I get it. This new generation of people, they just want to just press a button and make everything happen and not really be involved except for when the money rolls in. And that works in maybe, things that you're kind of not inanimate objects like Amazon and other stuff that you're fulfilling, in that way. That works. But be careful when you're dealing with people, because a people business will tolerate it, but it's not going to necessarily get you any brownie points. And that's by today's standards. So this video is going to be evergreen. It's going to live on the internet. And I'm saying this in 2024. So, maybe things will be a little bit more personable as we go down the road, but I am talking about today. And especially in real estate. If you live in a major, major metropolitan area where there's just more people that live there, I live in Los Angeles. It's a predominantly younger city, right? It's a very youthful city. So there's a lot of younger people here. And in general, though, real estate, I think by the California or the National Association of Realtors, they say that the average real estate agent age is about 55. So make sure you know your audience and who you're talking to. They're not really hip on the AI thing. It's better to pick up the phone. Texting has probably been more tolerated in the last 10 years, and make sure of that. So those are just little side notes I want to say in terms of developing and maintaining relationships. because don't expect that you're just going to keep texting and texting and texting for someone who's over 40. So know your audience. For those of you who are younger, in your 20s, step up.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because I'm a Gen Xer, and so I don't always appreciate somebody just texting me all the time. I like a phone call every now and again.
Yeah.
And if you hate doing it, then get to liking it, because the average agent is a little bit older, and they respect and appreciate that. Okay, and you'll let the text messages take care of themselves in between, but make sure you put a manual call in there every now and again.
Now and then. And even if it is just leaving a
Yeah,
voicemail, because many people are not going to pick up, but
yeah,
they hear your voice, they hear your energy, and even that is a good touch point because I was not a phone person. In fact, I was the person that entered this business like refusing to pick up the phone under the fear that somebody would call me out for being idiotic for something, because it was a new language to me. I didn't want to pick up a phone and have those conversations. As soon as I did, man, my business changed, my connections changed, even my interest in the business changed because I recognized it more as a relationship sales business, which I already knew from my art side of the world. So it was something I could finally go, oh, my brain is connecting these two things as to how I show up just by picking up the phone. So highly encourage that. And even when it's
that's right.
strange. For example, I had kind of a weird touch point today where I had sent an agent original outreach to this buyer of mine on accident. But I know he's an agent too. He's licensed and he got this fresh one, new CRM, new number from my new business. Last time I sold him a deal was 2022. So we hadn't talked in a minute. And so I sent him that fresh thing and the first thing that came back kind of pinging me was what's Kickflip, which is the name of my business, Kickflip Consultants. And I was like, this is a strange response. So I could see that coming from a regular agent. And I just looked this guy up real quick on Google, which pulled up a picture that slapped me across the face and went, you've sold to this man before. And I was
Oh
like,
no.
oh, that's right. But it was my next text message to him was a total save where I was like, hey, you remember I sold you this property in 2022, and now this is my new company name where I'm now taking title. I wanted to reconnect with you, see if you were still buying, because I can always bring you cool opportunities, or work with you if you have a cool opportunity that you don't want to pick up. Because that's tying it back to you're an agent and I'm reaching out to you from the buy side as an agent that can help me purchase, but I also sell to you. This is it's all synergy in this business. And I was able to switch that. And he was like, great, here's my email, here's my new buy box, here's what I want, et cetera, et cetera. And now I've placed myself in a position to be of value to him. And he'll be valuable to me too.
Guys, that's so good. And that's exactly what Corianne and I are doing. So it's a slightly different distinction. So for those of you who are coming in as, say, just investors or wholesalers, and the script or the messaging is basically, what do you have for me? And I'm willing to buy it for cash and close quickly. Now, you might be new to the business, and that is a new line and a new script. It's as old as wholesaling in and of itself. So it's not anything new. So it's sort of like, what are you going to do for me? Outside of like, yeah, I know you're going to close quick and you got cash. I got it. So when you're talking to an agent, that's not really incentivizing. What I would say is incentivizing is the consistency and the trust. And if you're not an agent, that's okay. If you're actually an investor, don't not follow up. I can't tell you how many times, because Corianne and I are agents, we get these inbound messages from other investors from the agent side. So I get them probably a couple of times a week now. It's petered out a little bit, which tells me that people maybe have left this get rich quick scheme. And I was getting probably 2 a day. And not one of them picked up the phone to call me when I responded to the text message. And I never got another follow-up text message. So in terms of agents, for what you're saying, this is the sauce right here as an agent, is that when you are getting stuff that's coming in from maybe another investor, or you can go out and ask your investors what they might have coming across their table that they are passing on, And you have to train people, and you do need to say it probably 8 to 10 times. It's going to take a couple of months, but you can raise your hand in a text message, raise your hand in a phone call, the consistency game, right? And you're going to say, hey, Mr. Investor that I'm friendly with, what is it that you might be passing on? Because let's make money for both of us. Just because it doesn't pencil out for you, I have other buyers that are looking for opportunities that are willing to pay a little bit more. And I'm happy to give you a referral fee or whatever you're going to do for it. A Starbucks card. I don't know. Whatever you're going to do for it. Let's go make money.
Mm.
And that's what I'm doing. So I'm training my other agents. I'm training my other investors. And every time that they go, oh yeah, I never even thought about that because that one didn't pencil out. And I let it go. I'm like, ah. So as an agent, be that gray area. And guys, this is what I say to the other agents, because the other agent is now thinking, yeah, but Renee, that's not my listing, so I have no control over it. And to them, I say, not a problem. Send me a commission referral agreement, just like you're going to send me a commission referral agreement for any other house that we would sell. I'm gladly happy to sign it. We don't have to agree on a percentage. We can agree upon a flat fee assignment, a flat fee. Let's call it $5,000 for the sake of this conversation. I'm going to pay Corianne $5,000 just for the opportunity for her from somebody in her office or another investor that said, hey, I'm about to throw this opportunity away. And they get it. And then they pass it to me, bypassing themselves as the agent, but giving it to me. And then I do the deal direct with the investor because they don't know how to wholesale or they don't want to get involved, the agent that gave me this opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe it's another agent in their office that they heard them pitch to say, hey, I got this dirty fixer that's coming up. And that agent that I know says, hey, you know what? Renee buys dirty fixers. I'm going to call Renee. But that's weird. Why would I call Renee? How am I going to get paid because it's not my listing? That's why I've preempted it by telling that agent, I will pay you a fee. I'll pay you a fee for telling me that the other person has the deal,
Mm-hmm.
and just make the introduction to me, to the other person. I'll do the deal with them and I'll give you a referral. It's the most amount of money you're ever going to make. You don't even have to pick up the phone.
Collaborative. It requires
That's
a
collaborative.
a understanding and a trust that collaboration is going to get you further. And I think that's what shocked me when I got my license and I was just taking on listings and I was dabbling in that world was how competitive the agents are towards each other. And when I gave a referral to, I actually gave 3 referrals to this gal who's just down the mountain from me. I didn't want to drive that far for these particular clients. I referred out to her and made 25%. That
Mm-hmm.
agent couldn't have been more grateful that I brought her business and I made the quickest money that I didn't have to do or touch ever. I was like, referrals are awesome. I remember
They
feeling
are
that way. I was like,
awesome.
I can help anyone in Colorado, by the way. I'll get you started,
Mm-hmm.
I'll prep you up, and then I'll take you to one of the best agents in each and every city in Colorado because that is fun money for me. And on top
Yeah.
of that, I get to take care of people in the best way, which is the coaching and not the paperwork.
Yeah, and you find your way through this business, so that's maybe like a loosely said, like a side hustle in this business, right? And I like that you're doing that, and the collaboration. And it's so interesting because we're kind of taught this as agents, meaning we're only taught to leave home, leave cave, go out, get listing, get buyer, close deal, repeat. Like that's how myopic is that? I mean, it's like just go big, and here's what I would encourage everyone in the listening of this is you might think to yourself, somewhere a little still small voice is saying, yeah, but Renee, I'm going to do all this work and I'm only going to get paid a small amount, whatever the small amount is, $2,000, $5,000, whatever market you're in. And here's the thing, guys. Here's what I know as getting a little bit older is efficiency of time. Time is the great equalizer. And so you run it through your own filter. You do you. If it's not for you, throw out what I'm going to say. But, if you made 15, 10, 15, $20,000 commission, guaranteed there's a lot more work that's going to go into that, and just be okay with it.
Mm-hmm.
And then you might say to yourself, well, gosh, I'm going to make $3,000 or $5,000 and I made one phone call for 10 minutes. What is your time worth? So do not dismiss these quote unquote smaller opportunities, or don't dismiss the fact that I'm being blunt here, but that you maybe can't think out of the box. I mean, if I was at an office meeting and I heard somebody say like they had a dirty fixer coming down the road, I'd be going through my mental Rolodex of like, who can I piece this together with? How do I make this work? Not, oh, well, it's not my listing, or, oh, well, I don't have the investor in my repertoire. No, who's the other investor? So you need to educate agents along the way with this. And then agents educate your investors along the way with this, because they are just as straight on narrow. If it's not the 70% rule, if it doesn't pencil out for them, it's like they just throw it away. It's shocking. People are not as apt to think, who do they know? Because that in and of itself doesn't have to take a lot of time if they've already laid down the foundation of the relationship, which we were talking about from the beginning of this call.
Mm-hmm.
So stick people in your CRM and go, hey, I got wind of 123 Main Street. Who out here would want it? Boop, hit go and see what comes back. And I guarantee you have money sitting in your CRM every day of the week. So for my fellow agents out there in 2024 with a shifting market last year and in inflation and all the things that are perceived negativity, heed the call of what Corey and I are saying, because we're offering you opportunity. We're offering you a different way to think out of the box to actually make money.
Mm.
And I beg of you not to just assume that there's not enough business out there because listings are just not coming your way and you're not just sticking a sign in the yard and then waiting 30 or 45 days and getting a paycheck.
Mm.
Yeah, guess what? There's not been enough inventory in the United States of America in the almost 20 years that I've been doing business and prior to that. We have a shortage of inventory. So what are we going to do about it? So, take some of these ideas and run with it. And then please consider Corianne and I as your referral source. Whether you resonate with Corianne or maybe you resonate with me or resonate with both of us, we are all licensed agents, which means that we can help you in all 50 states.
Mm.
So if you guys need some help on how to kind of work a referral, reach out to either of us or both of us or whatever. We'll help you. Definitely. We'll help you get going if this sounded confusing.
That is where I want to wrap today, because honestly, it is something they can take, chew on, and make your business better before they get to see and chat with us again. Thank you to everybody that joined us today on
Yeah.
Ask an Agent Anything. It is our joy to show up and chat with each other and share all of our info with you. So thanks for showing up, everybody.
Thanks for your time. You guys, hope you got some value. We look forward to talking to you next week. Be well.